Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Whether you're tuning in on the radio dial, we welcome you all back to our program. Or those joining us through our online affiliates around the world, we're glad to have all of you with us as well. We're excited to welcome back best-selling author Camille Pagan to our program. I've had a chance to read a few of Camille's books that have really struck me. Life and Other Near-Death Experiences is one that people talk about. Last year, her book, Forever is the Worst Long Time, was one of the 10 books I said that everyone needed to read in 2017. And this year, she's given us Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. I love the title, and I love this book. And I'm so glad that we're able to talk to Camille not only about the writing of the book, but the messages she's been able to share along the way. Now, if you're just hearing about Camille's new book, we'll remind you at the end of our segment how you can be able to get it for yourself. But Camille, hello to you, and welcome back to the program.
Hi, Cyrus. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, look, I'm glad to speak with you again, and on Pub Day of all days. So that's the exciting thing, too. Congratulations to you. Happy Pub Day. I mean, are you still having those wow moments, Camille, as you kind of think about this new book, this new journey, and this new opportunity to discuss this book with your readers?
Oh, my gosh. It never gets old. This is just really, every time I hold one of my books in my hands, it's a big wow moment. So this one is especially near and dear to me. It was hard to write. But I really am thrilled with how it came out, and I'm starting to hear from readers, and it's just been a really good ride.
Yeah, and it's a ride that you've been able now to share with us, and we're able to take along with the main character, Maggie. And, of course, for those who haven't read it yet, don't worry, I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, but I do believe that one of the big takeaways that people will take away from the very beginning of the book, Camille, is the importance of appreciating your life for what it is, because things can change so drastically. Is that one of the things that you also have been able to do?
Oh, absolutely. I think with every book, I get closer to my main point, which I guess is making the most of your life. You know, you can't control what happens to you by and large, but you can control your reaction to it. And that's something that took me as a person a long time to realize, and it's now making its way into my fiction. I think it's just the thing that keeps you happy.
For sure, for sure. So take us back a little bit, Camille, for those who have not heard our previous conversations or even, have read any of your previous books. Have you always known that storytelling and entertaining through words was one of those things that you were meant to do?
I think I did. I was always writing stories as a child, and then even in my teen years, I would make up stories for my friends just to entertain them about their lives or what they would become. But I guess during my 20s, I thought that fiction was out of reach, the way a lot of writers do initially. They're just so intimidated because you have these great authors that you adore, and you think, I could never do that. But just before I turned 30, I had just given birth to my first child, and a dear friend of mine was battling terminal cancer. And for whatever reason, this life moment for me was the time when I realized, okay, I'm going to start now. Today is the day. And I started writing the book that would become my first novel, The Art of Forgetting. And it's been, since then I've just been going at it. Keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And in each book, Camille, especially, the three that I've had an opportunity to read and to discuss with you, I think the things that always come across to me is that, yes, they are entertaining. Yes, you kind of scratch your head sometimes at these characters. But I think with the new book, Woman Last Seen in Her 30s, when I first heard the title, I had one thing in my mind as to what it was about, someone, of course, being lost. Of course, when I started reading it, it was different than I thought, but it was exactly what I thought, just in a different way, right? I mean, I think that is the thing. So many of us, we have these different titles, some of us more than others, and it's so easy for us to forget who we are at our core. Talk to us about how this new book kind of came to you.
Well, this book, like so many of my novels, it's not at all about my life, but it was inspired by an actual incident in my life. So I was at the grocery store, and a young man, I think he was about college age, ran into me with his cart. And he hurt me, and I think he knew that he had hurt me, but instead of apologizing, he just kind of looked through me and went on his way. And there's the possibility that he was just a rude person, but it got me thinking about how So many women I've spoken with for journalism stories have mentioned this feeling of invisibility, and certainly the media tells us that after a certain age we're going to become invisible. And I thought, there's a story here. And I really wanted to read a story about a woman who was not in her 20s and starting at this early adult point, but really someone who was further along and still facing challenges. And so I thought, well, that's the book I'll write.
Yeah. And it's a book that I think takes some twists and turns that I was not expecting. We'll talk around some of those things. I do want to say, for those who are just tuning in either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're so excited to welcome back to our program today best-selling author Camille Pagan. She's the author of the new book called Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. And it's a book that, for me, is all about, I even said this in my review on Amazon, Camille, all about, the self-discovery, but also self-awareness. And I think, realizing that you have worth. And it can be in little things. If you don't mind, I'd like to mention one of the ones that may seem like a little thing, and that is a call that Maggie gets about a job. She didn't get what she wanted, yet it still was $1 more than what she had previously. And I think that little thing, it seems like a little thing, but it's a big thing. I mean, is that also part of what you've been able to do in your life, Camille, and that is to appreciate those little things?
I think that, the joy is in the details, right? So it's taking these moments to say yes when you want to say yes and say no when you want to say no, and appreciate your own self-worth, not necessarily the way the world views you, but are you a good friend? Are you a good mother or father or sister? Really looking at those parts of your life and celebrating them. And Maggie, at first she's hesitant, but she learns to do this. She learns to say, okay, this isn't going to work out for me, so I'm going to say no, or I'll say yes to this risky thing that I really want.
Right, for sure. And there are quite a few risks that she has to deal with. One, of course, is in her relationship with her spouse. The other, though, is another relationship that kind of finds its way throughout the book, and that is with her mother. As you mentioned, and I said earlier, we all wear different titles. Was that something you knew going in would be a part of Maggie's journey, her experiences with her mom, or is that something that evolved?
I think I did know, because when I start to write a book, I think, who is this person? Who is the protagonist? What makes them the person that they are? And for me, Maggie came fully formed. She was anxious. She was a caregiver. And I always knew that her mother had shaped her to be that person, kind of putting those anxieties in her head in a subtle way, because they had a very unstable, Maggie's childhood was very unstable. Her mother was poor. But also teaching her to be a loving person who prioritized the right things. So she was there all along, and I thought, as Maggie is making these decisions and going through these risky situations and dealing with her life changes, she would have to reflect on what her mother would think and do. And not to spoil it, but Maggie lost her mother early on. So, her mother's still with her during the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is another big thing, I think, for sure, for me, is that, reminding us of the impact that we make on others. And this is a big one for me. Again, it's a theme that I didn't think about when I went into the book, Camille, and that is that we all leave an imprint. As you mentioned, the experience you had in the grocery store, how, people can leave an impression with you, leave an imprint on you that may linger with you. Is that one of the things that you hope, even though it is a novel and it's something that people, I think, enjoy reading, that they do think more about the imprint they're making, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of other people?
I hope so. I never approach a novel thinking, I'm going to have this one message throughout the book, or I'm trying to say this with it. But inevitably, after I'm done writing and I've had some time to reflect, I see that there is some sort of message there. And I think for this book, very much it is acknowledging how much impact you can have on those around you, the ability to really change the world one interaction at a time. And that's what Maggie does. It really was a book that was very empowering for me to write, and I'm hoping readers will feel that way when they read it. For
sure. I'm going to ask you this question, and I think I can do it without us discussing anything we shouldn't. But, I think the other thing, which is always the high wire act I have to do with the show, I think the other thing is, we all have heard that saying, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. And this book really makes you think about, are all second chances good, right?
Yeah, I think about this in my own life all the time. You know, if you have a second chance, is that a sign that you should take it, or is it maybe not?
Right.
And Maggie has a couple second chances in this book, and some of them really are great opportunities. She's afraid. I think when things happen to us, a lot of times the first instinct that we might have is to keep things the way they are. You know, humans were hardwired to resist change. So Maggie digs her heels in. She wants everything to stay the way it is, and change finds her anyways, you know, as it goes. So as she begins to open herself up to that, as some of those second chances, she begins to realize that she does have a say in certain things. Some second chances are a good opportunity, and others maybe are not for her. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. That's a good thing. You know, I hope our audience appreciates that. But I think there's also this other thing of reflection. You mentioned about Maggie's mother, and you know, and appreciating that again, going back to the simplicity of the little things, and even when it comes to doing what you can with what you have, and not feeling as though you have to be something just for someone else. That you can just be authentic to yourself, and that be enough. Do you think one of the big things, too, is that Maggie realizes that she is enough?
She does. She definitely does. And that's one where I'm not spoiling the book for anyone by saying that. At a certain point, she thinks she needs to change things or enhance things or be a different person in order to be enough. And really, around the midpoint of the book, maybe two-thirds through, she realizes, here I am, and I have everything I need within me. You know, how I look, the person I am, the things that I do, my family, these are enough for me. And I think, for me personally, that's my definition of happiness. I am enough, I do enough, I love enough. So I think that she has that realization as well.
Yeah. For sure, and I think that's a great thing for all of us to be able to find for ourselves. For those who are just tuning in, you're listening to Conversations Live. Best-selling author Camille Pagan is back with us today. We're discussing her new book, Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. We last spoke with Camille when she was promoting her book, Forever is the Worst Long Time. If you have not read that one, another great book for you to be able to read. You know, I think, too, you know, as you're kind of now busy promoting the new book, discussing this one like you are with me, you know, I think, you know, that the rush of life kind of kicks in sometimes. You know, how have you been able to kind of stop and take it all in, Camille?
Oh, well, I have small children, so that doesn't hurt. They keep me grounded. There's always, you know, Mommy, come do this. Mommy, look at this. Let's read together. And I love that because you have to slow down. There's no other way to do it. And for me, it's just a daily practice, taking the time to care for myself, you know, to exercise daily, to talk to the people who I love and who uplift me. You know, it really is what you do every day is who you are, and I think about that a lot.
Do you find also, and I think this is a more general question toward looking at your books, especially the ones that I've read, that have such powerful characters that are not easy to forget, do you find that they linger with you long after you write the end?
Well, I'm glad that you think they're unforgettable. That means a lot to me.
Yeah.
It's funny, I will think of the things that I have written in my books in my characters' voices years later, and they still are so distinct to me. There's never the possibility that I will mistake one character for the other or speak in the other character's voice while I'm drafting, because the story for me starts with the protagonist. That is, the whole book comes from that. And so I love writing that way. It's deeply personal. It allows me to get outside of my own head because they don't do things that I would necessarily do. Some of the decisions Maggie makes, I would like to think that I would not make just because I'm a different person. But then you can start thinking, like, you know, why do people make the decisions they do? Everything is personal, and it comes from, you know, who you are, how you were raised, what you believe, what your values are. It's really that's how the world works.
For sure. Well, I know people are going to love this new book, Camille. I love it. As I said, I've already written my review on Amazon.com. Definitely encourage anyone who has not gotten it for themselves, head over to Amazon and get it in its various forms there or through your favorite bookstore. Again, the title is Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. The author is Camille Pagan. And Camille, let our audience know, how can they stay connected with you?
You can find me on CamillePagan.com, CamillePagan.com, and all of my various social media platforms you can link to from there.
All right. Speaking of social media, I mean, what has that been like for you? I mean, of course, I think since the last time you spoke with the two of us spoke, Camille, Instagram has become a bigger part of our lives. I think I shared a photo today for you. I mean, what has that experience been like for you to see in pictures people sharing your book and being able to let people know that they've gotten your books?
You know, it's funny. I would not describe myself as someone who's particularly social media savvy, and yet I love it so much because I hear from readers who I would not have connected with otherwise. And I think for a writer, you know, you're doing this thing, very solitary activity all by yourself, you know, page after page after page. And there are those moments where you think, why am I doing this? Why would I do this to myself? And just hearing from one or two people who say, you know, this book really meant a lot to me. It got me through a tough time. I connected with it. That is so incredibly moving. It's, I guess, the fuel that I need to write the next one and the next one.
Gotcha. Well, we're definitely looking forward to the next one and the next one. Camille, thank you again so much for your time, and looking forward to our next conversation together, Camille.
Same, Cyrus. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late and missed part of the conversation with Camille, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media site. So head over to Facebook.com/CyrusWebb or go to Twitter.com/CyrusWebb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for free and share with your friends from there too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. You all make it a great one.